The afterlife in Asia. Asian culture mostly consists of an afterlife connected to the religion of Buddhism. In Buddhism, there is not really a true place or afterlife. Instead, it is known as a state of being, said state being nirvana. After the death of a person, instead of their soul heading somewhere, it is instead reborn anew. If the person does not manage to achieve the state of nirvana by not following the teachings and lifestyle of Buddha, one continues this cycle of life and death. In Buddhism, being alive is a state of constant suffering and pain. After practicing Buddha's teachings, one transcends this pain that is life and is able to achieve pure peace and happiness. In the depiction of this piece, Siddhartha, a spiritual teacher, which is Buddha himself, and a former prince on a journey to seek enlightenment, was born to spread the word of Buddha. This art piece is filled with symbolism in different ways. Buddha was depicted in this piece to be a symbol of pride, as he faced west and his final moments after living a life of teaching. His short curls represent an ascetic life, which is of self-discipline, and large earlobes with expensive jewelry to represent his princely nature. Around Buddha are witnesses revealing their own imperfect enlightenment. Many mourn, human and non-human creatures, which represent all the creatures follow in Buddha's teaching, exactly how it is intended to be. Overall, this piece depicts a melancholic yet enlightened nature of the afterlife of Buddhism. Those who follow the teachings of Buddha achieve an everlasting paradise of nirvana, represented in the amount of followers mourning over Buddha's death, yet feeling a form of enlightenment. Buddha's death is an exact image of what nirvana is conceived to be in the teachings of Buddha, and center nirvana as a beautiful place to be, if one were to follow the teachings, of course. The Wheel of Life, as it officially is called within Buddhism, is a symbolic representation of the continuous cycle of birth, life, and death. Buddhists believe in nirvana, as previously stated, and the act of reincarnation as their main beliefs of the afterlife, all coming together in one giant wheel. The afterlife in Buddhism depicts a concept of rebirth where one's soul will enter an intermediate state of death and rebirth until that soul is eventually placed in another body. Benefit Rain, it depicts dragons as symbol of nature's elemental forces, which reflect the ancient religion being centered around life rather than the afterlife, have been depicted on ancient Chinese mural. The dragon paintings were painted with emotion by Chen Rong and the Chan Buddhist painter Muki. These pieces reflect an empty yet bashful spirit of Taoism as a whole. The detail from a Hell Scroll series depicting the 10 courts of magistrates of the underworld. Shown are the exemplary souls, obtaining release from the underworld realm because they have exhibited great virtue in life. This bridge is called the Bridge of Seven Treasures, rather than the Golden Bridge, and it is an inscription above each soul's explaining the reasons for his release. This represents the underworld of ancient Chinese culture, and how many souls who enter it must be tested and receive an opposite of great virtue. All ancient Chinese rulers together in a heaven-like, or afterlife, area. The ancient tradition of celebrating immortals through visual art has long influenced the development of Chinese iconography. This water and land ritual painting depicts a number of gods popular in both Taoist and secular Chinese culture in the afterlife setting. The afterlife in Egypt. Ancient Egypt cultural belief in the afterlife is very interesting in regards to the entire purpose of death. Once one passes away, they are mummified and sometimes even had done artwork of said person due to the belief of doing this would help maintain the body and spirit intact in order to cross safely into the afterlife. Some that are mummified are given multiple things in their coffins that would be believed to help them through said passage in order to achieve eternal life, which would normally mean being reborn. If not achieved, said souls would be sent to the underworld and prohibited from having a second life.
The Book of the Dead, ancient Egyptian culture. What is it depicting? While being called the Book of the Dead, it is a collection of paintings that depict visual representations of death, the afterlife, and funerary practices. The Book of the Dead is a collection of paintings depicting how preparing for the afterlife works. While not necessarily aimed at the afterlife, it depicts many instances where death is treated, as they perceive death to be an act of revival. Overall, it gives a short insight of what their culture was like when dealing with death, showing images of gods and any other higher up being. On the mummification tomb artwork, what is it depicting? Reinforcing the idea of how the Egyptians believed in death as a revival. For over 3,000 years, bodies of people were preserved within different items at different times, and the quality of the mummy related to the wealth of the person in question. It was a tradition of preserving the body for the afterlife, and the art piece shows a god or a higher up adjacent to a tomb, surrounded by what appears to be followers, reinforcing the act of the mummification process, as it was very normal in Egypt to follow in this tradition in death. Weighing the heart. What is it depicting? This painting shows the weighing of the heart in conjunction with mummification to guide the soul by judging them. In short, the soul will be judged for all the deeds they've done throughout their life on earth in the afterlife via a scale that weighs their sins, in which 42 Egyptian gods listen to the confessions of the deceased. The scale was illustrated in the painting to represent Mat, the goddess of truth and justice, where if a soul's heart was equal to weight counterbalanced by a feather, they would be granted immortality. If not, their soul would be devoured by Amemet, another goddess, meaning their soul would not survive in the afterlife. Overall, this piece depicts judgment and order, with the scale being a key factor of judging a soul for their sins, a huge factor in the beliefs of the ancient Egypt afterlife. Unnamed tomb painting. What is it depicting? In ancient Egypt, as a part of the culture for the afterlife, painters were tasked with preserving a dead individual's spirit by painting their image on their own tombstone to represent them in their truest form as they head off for the afterlife. Many of the colors used on the tombstone have religious significance to the deities of the afterlife, as well as general theological beliefs. The Book of Two Ways. What is it depicting? A depiction of the underworld where the soul was bound to two ways. One way that the soul could go through the underworld was by land, while the other one was by water, as it was a journey through a hellish afterlife. This painting is in relation to the Book of Life, in which it relates to those who have been damned to the underworld, and the painting demonstrates the belief of leaving the underworld to achieve the realm of Osiris.
The afterlife in Europe. The European afterlife is similar to what we have now in the common known afterlife, just with more complexities and different gods. The main difference is, of course, the depiction of the underworld slash hell and heaven. There is an immense amount of different iterations of the underworld throughout the Old Age. Without Christianity and the Bible, many people depicted it in many different ways. An example being but a simple river that has negative effects on those who drink it, to now the well-known Dante's Inferno and the 9 layers of hell.
What is it depicting? In death, if one's soul were to be unimproved, by the Greek gods. They were punished to be with Hades, the god of the underworld, and the keeper of that realm. Many envisioned that their souls would go to a better place, which influenced Greek perception in avoiding to be bad in order to avoid being with Hades. The depiction of hell in Greek culture is with Hades, and is the equivalent to the devil in other religions, such as Catholicism. The Elysian Fields is a heaven-like paradise where gods and nobles spend their eternities in the afterlife. It is almost equivalent to the Garden of Eden in Christianity, in which the afterlife is spent here where all souls are happy. The art shown depicts positive connotations, with free souls and gods inhabiting the fields in union. In this painting, the idea of the deceased living in the underworld was reinforced, and this painting is a depiction of the Romans' view of the underworld. In short, the hero Athena's ventures into an underworld that is akin to the Greek equivalent, Hades. Here, Athena's encounters the dreamlike fields of Elysium, where the souls of the blessed reside, and gloomy Taratus, the home of the damned. The unburied wait restlessly on the shores of the river Styx, with their souls haunting the living, damned to the underworld. Much like the river Styx, the river Lethe in the underworld, another depiction of the afterlife, is the river of forgetfulness. Souls damned to the underworld would drink from the river, forgetting their previous life of sin. The idea of reincarnation in ancient Greece became prevalent due to this, however. Souls were damned to the underworld to drink from the river to forget their lives as punishment. The depiction of the underworld in another light, where Charon, son of Erebus and Neax, is carrying the damned souls to the underworld across the river Styx, a river of punishment, which is a metaphorical place in the underworld damned souls worth punishing go to.
The entire exhibit would be in a shape of a triangle with a staircase leading up to it in the middle. Each wall would showcase a different artwork in their respective culture. This small exhibit would be located in the Museum of Fine Arts at Houston, due to the museum itself having a large exhibit dedicated to the art of many cultures in the second building. This room would be added onto that larger exhibit as in to focus on the subject of the afterlife.